What's up, YouTube? Long time no hear. Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a minute, but I really felt compelled to talk about this topic and give my point of view and my 2.5 cents about the topic. And that topic is this whole situation that has been unraveling involving Eboni K. Williams and Iyanla Vanzant. And to recap right quick, I think pretty much if you're watching this video, you probably already know the situation, but to recap right quick, Iyanla, she went on the Breakfast Club and said something to the effect of basically black women are masculine. And they are at least operating in their masculine, right? And Eboni K. Williams, she heard that and she agreed with it, but she also wanted to bring Iyanla onto her show and have a discussion about it. And they started to talk about things, and it got to a point where Eboni, she asked Iyanla, on behalf of the black women who basically have their situation together as far as, they got their education, their money, perhaps property, a business, perhaps they have the looks too, etc., right? For the black woman who has a lot to offer, how should she go about finding a suitable mate? And Iyanla, she wound up just asking a question, thus answering Eboni's question with a question, which is already deflection right there. And Iyanla asked Eboni if she would date a bus driver. And then the rest is history at that point. But, Eboni said that she would date the bus owner. And Iyanla was like, well, she would date the bus driver. Sure would. And she said she would build with the bus driver too. Sure did. Although she did mention that she would have a prenuptial agreement and that she would have her own stash of money on the side, which I think would be strange to go in the situation as building with this man who would be her husband, but also, feeling the need to have a prenuptial agreement and also to have money on the side, which I do think would be a smart move to make. Iyanla and Eboni are both lawyers. I don't think Iyanla really practices law anymore, though. From what I heard, I think that once she actually started to practice law, she didn't really like it, so she changed careers. But she does have a law degree, though. But, Eboni, she wasn't really there for the whole build a brother. She wasn't there for that, and, once it hit the internet and hit the blogs, particularly the black blogs and the black social media spaces, folks had some things to say. And when you come after the black man in any way, especially the average black man, especially coming after the average black man as a black woman, oh, they gonna come for you. You in danger. Everybody in they black male identified mama is gonna come for you. And that's pretty much what happened. After that, Eboni got some backlash from the comment. And then she addressed it in another podcast or either in another episode of her show. and basically more or less doubled down on it, and then went into a whole spiel about mediocrity, black folks, white supremacy. And it's not to say that those things are not relevant, because, you know, those are conversations that do need to be had, although I do think it can kind of veer away from the whole point, which really I think Iyanla ended up veering away from the whole question to begin with. But let me really get into my commentary about this, right? First, first things first, I really think that basically Iyanla, from the looks of it, it seems like she got a new hustle, which is being a relationship coach, a relationship expert, a relationship guru, etc. That seems to be the new hustle right now. I guess she ended up going to the healing, self-help route and going as far as she can go with that. So now she's just jumped onto a new hustle and jumped into a new lane. But the thing is, what really qualifies Iyanla to be like a relationship coach? And not even trying to be shady with that. I'm just asking, what really qualifies her to do that? What really qualifies any of these folks out here to be really like relationship experts? Like, do they have, like, what are the credentials? Like, what's the criteria that you have to meet? Because as far as I know, Iyanla, she was married at one point, but she's divorced, and I don't think she's been married ever since that divorce. And, I don't see a ring on her finger. I don't see an engagement. I don't see anyone in her life in particular. Perhaps maybe he's behind the scenes. But yeah, I really think that basically, in so many ways, I feel like Iyanla, she may be posturing herself to be like Kevin Samuels 2.0. Because notice, this whole relationship stuff is being aimed at black women primarily. It's not being aimed at black men as far as, black men, you got to get this together. You got to get that together. You got to pull up your pants, black man. You got to take off that do-rag, black man. You got to go to college, black man. Or you got to go to a trade school at least, black man. No, you don't really be hearing all that. All these, tips and tricks and advice. You don't really hearing all that geared towards black men like that. And if you do, it's probably not going to be popular, and there's going to be a lot of pushback on it, whether it's from the Pookies and Ray Rays or the educated lames, or either the in-between of that. Because I think that these relationship gurus, quote unquote, experts, coaches, whatever you want to call them, I think that they know that going down that lane, they're not going to have much popularity and longevity. Because let's be real, I really don't think that black men as a collective are really trying to hear that sort of talk. And if you do present that sort of talk, then it's like, oh, you bougie, you elitist, you're on some respectability politics. You've been brainwashed by the system to go against the black man. If your advice is insane, or your commentary is insane, that black men are basically more or less 100% perfect, give or take a percent or two, and that black women in the system / white men are the problem, then black men ain't really trying to hear it. Nor are black male identified black women trying to hear it. And by the way, Iyanla Vanzant, she looks like she would date a bus driver. She looks like she was made to date a bus driver. And then there was a discussion about bus drivers and their salaries. And some people saying that, some bus drivers earn 6 figures. And, to to be honest, I wasn't aware of bus drivers' salaries like that. And I feel like may also depend on like your location. If you're like a bus driver in New York, it probably is $100,000. But let's be real. $100,000 in New York isn't going as far as the $100,000 in other parts of the United States. But I'll say that it is something to work with. And the thing is, though, Eboni spoke about her and her situation. She didn't say black women bump the bus drivers, bump the blue collar brothers. Oh, sisters, nuh-uh, we doing it big. Sisters, we going white collar. Nothing. She didn't say that. She didn't try to put it out as, oh, this is what everyone should do. It's just for her, right? And she's allowed to have that preference, and I thought it was okay for people to have preferences, right? But this is a case and an example of when a preference has a preference, because Eboni K. Williams would more or less be considered a preference, quote unquote. And I think that may be kind of low-key a part of it too. Because it's like, oh, the preference doesn't prefer a brother like me? Oh, no. So, those brothers are in their feelings about that. And it's like, oh, don't knock the average brother. Don't knock the average working brother or sister. They'll tack on black women, to help push the agenda. But don't really be wanting to, advocate for black women like that. It's just for the numbers and the support. But the thing is, though, talking about average and mediocre, right? I find that a bit funny that folks are getting triggered by the word average, at least, because it's partly average and some people being triggered by mediocre. But the thing is, though, you guys remember a while ago, back when Kevin Samuels was still alive, he ended up going viral because he called a phenotypically black woman, quote unquote, average at best. And there was backlash, but it was backlash more so from black women. And even then, it was like some black women, because other black women were like, well, some folks is average. And, black men was on the same tip, more or less, like, hey, that's just what it is. He just serving this straight no chaser, right? Again, I find that funny that it's okay to serve it straight no chaser to black women. But when black women serve it straight no chaser to black men, all of a sudden, that goes out the window. All of a sudden, black men's feelings have to be taken into account. And we have to, particularly black women have to word things in a certain way. And to an extent, even black men who happen to be critical of other black men have to do similar things. Make sure your message is, choose your words wisely. Make sure your message is palatable enough, right? They don't have that same energy about, oh, straight no chaser, right? When they're on the receiving end of the straight no chaser commentary, then it's a different story. But when they're on the end that's giving the straight no chaser commentary, then it's all good in the hood. Oh, y'all too sensitive. Oh, y'all don't like the truth. Oh, folks just telling you how it is. And for me, I'm just like, well, just keep the same energy across the board, right? And as well, why do people always have to essentially coddle black men in situations like this? And the answer is because racism, right? Why should black women lower their standards, when it comes to dating? Because racism, right? Because black men and racism. And of course, racism is a thing, of course. But it's like, I don't really hear these type of arguments being pushed forth when it comes to black women who are being criticized, right? Like, oh, black women are operating in their masculine and black women are men in skirts. No one's saying, well, racism, right? No one's saying that, oh, the system, it got a hold on the black woman and them brainwashed. No one's really coming at it like that when it comes to why black women are doing the things that they do. Well, basically operating in their masculine, quote unquote, right? And if black women are operating in their masculine, well, why is that? That's something that really needs to be explored, because folks will say that, and some people will even concede it, some black women, but I don't really hear an exploration about why that is. And partly because of the way that the system is set up, also because of black men wanting to operate in their feminine and not do the things that men are supposed to do, especially when it comes to taking care of kids that they fathered. But that's a whole video in itself. Like, don't put it all on black women. And I feel like these relationship gurus, they know the audience. So they know that if they put it all or majority on black women, they know that will go over better than putting it on black men, or even putting like 50% on black men and putting 50% on black women. Not even that. And as well, Iyanla, she knows to only go so far when it comes to criticizing black men. She's not going to say something like, oh, black men are just women who sag their pants. Because if she says something like that, social media gonna come for Iyanla and drag her to the next part of Tuesday. Heck, they're gonna drag her in the next month. And also, Iyanla, she's doing all this mammying, mewing, pick-meing, and still don't got a man. Still don't got a ring on her finger. And none of these triggered jiggas are checking for her. Let's be real. I'm not trying to be rude, and I'm not trying to really come for her like that, but I don't really think these dudes are really checking for her like that, even though she's doing essentially what black women are supposed to be doing, quote unquote. And that's okay, because, women are more than just, the man who they marry, of course. But still, since this is the topic of the conversation, that should be a part of the criteria if she's going to be positioning herself as a relationship coach, expert, guru, whatever. And also another thing, when it comes to black women in these relationship coaches, like, I hardly ever hear these relationship coaches ever suggest to black women to expand their options, expand their dating options, consider their dating options outside of black men. I never hear any sort of any sort of suggestion like that. That would be a feasible suggestion like something that could actually be done within this generation, within our lifetime. And I'm thinking maybe it's because either they don't think that black women have options outside of black men, or either they really don't want black women to consider options outside of black men. Because let's be honest, if black women really do start choosing better, quote unquote, a lot of black men aren't going to be getting chosen. And it's going to be a lot more black women swirling it up. But then when that happens, if and when that would ever happen, then the narrative is going to be the black woman has abandoned the black man. She traded in the black man for a white man. Oh, the black woman done went back to slavery. And granted, there's more to interracial dating for black women than just them dating white men. But for some reason, that seems to always be where it ends up. And statistically speaking, I think that is where it does end up for a lot of black women. But of course, there's other options for black women when it comes to interracial dating outside of white men. Just, felt the need to put that out there. I do also want to bring up right quick a similar situation, not quite the same, but similar, that happened a while ago involving the comedian, quote unquote, B. Simone. Y'all remember when B. Simone said something to the effect of, oh, I want to date entrepreneurs, or, I'm really more interested in dating entrepreneurs. And black social media, especially black men and also black women who are black male identified, came for B. Simone because she had a preference of wanting to date entrepreneurs versus guys who work like a 9 to 5. Again, that was her preference. She did not say that every black woman in the whole entire universe needs to follow her preference. It was just what works for her. And really the way that I heard it explained by B. Simone was that she felt as if that would work better with her schedule and work better with her lifestyle more. I don't even think it was more even about the money. But these dudes, they do, and to be fair, it's not just the black men who do this. Is to an extent, a lot of times it's across the board. But in this situation, black men sometimes do read a bit too much into the comments, too much into what was said, like in the case of B. Simone and in the case of Eboni. And also, Eboni, she wound up going on the Breakfast Club and basically, just going more in depth about what she said and perhaps clearing some things up and things like that. And Envy, he was the one who was really kind of, really taking her to task, so to speak, on what she said with Iyanla Vanzant. And again, it ended up boiling down to, delivery, feelings. And it's like, why the HE double hockey sticks do black men's feelings have to be taken into consideration in situations like these when it comes to preferences, when black men are not taking black women's feelings into consideration when it comes to them expressing their preference? It's basically too bad, too sad. Oh, straight no chaser. Oh, this is just what I like. This is just my preference. But when it comes to black women, you got to go through 151 disclaimers, before you can express your preference. And even then, it's not good enough. Even the disclaimers don't work a lot of the times. And the exchange on the Breakfast Club, it did get a bit heated. Folks was in their feelings, on both sides because, Envy was in his feelings, and then that ended up triggering Eboni to be in her feelings. And he was going hard in the paint for the average brother, right? Even though I kind of think that Envy may be a bit elitist himself, as quiet as it's kept. And I did look at some of the comments in the comment section, and, a lot of black men were, big upping and thanking Envy for taking Eboni to task. And I'll say that, Envy did help to bring a different perspective to the conversation. Because at times I kind of felt like it did go off into a whole nother thing about, like, black people, the system, white supremacy, racism, soft bigotry. Yeah. And, those are things, definitely. But I think they just ended up making the conversation a bit more complicated and convoluted than it needed to be. But a question that I do have is, like, for the black women out there, like, what are they supposed to choose their mates based on? Like, is it based on how much money they earn? Can they provide? Can they protect? Is it based on how they look? Is it based on their swag? Is it based on their personality? How can black women really choose better? What should they be looking for when they choose? Like, what should they be choosing, right? And no one has really answered that question, because I don't really think people have an answer to that question, nor do I think that they care to have an answer to that question. That's not a concern of theirs. But one more point I want to bring up before I bring this video to a close, and that is, why is the burden always placed on black women in these situations? And really, honestly, just in general, why is the burden seemingly always placed on black women to somehow contort themselves, to lower their standards in relation to black men and dating? I don't really see these types of burdens being placed on black men, because if black women are not meeting black men's criteria, black men seemingly just go outside of the community to seek other options. And at this point, I just think that it's more or less something that is just expected. But I'm going to end the video on that note. But let me know what you think about this whole situation involving Eboni, Iyanla, Eboni's preference, the backlash to Eboni's preference, in the comments section below. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.